While I was fighting overseas, my wife emptied our account, moved in with my best friend, and told everyone I was dead. She even posted selfies in my uniform shirt. So I grabbed our insurance folder and made one call that changed everything forever when the plane landed at DFW. I expected at least one person waiting for me. My wife, my mom, hell, even a friend, someone. But the arrivals area was empty, just rows of strangers holding signs for other people. I stood there, duffel over my shoulder, boots still dusted with sand from a country I never want to see again, and stared at the automatic doors like maybe she'd walk through them any second. She didn't. When I finally got cell service, the texts hit like punches. My bank balance, 0. My name scrubbed from our shared Netflix. A Facebook post from her, grinning in my army shirt, the one I wore under body armor with my best friend, Kyle, kissing her cheek. The caption read, "Found my real hero Red Heart. Some people just aren't built to come home." She told my mom I probably wouldn't make it back anyway. Poor girl, Mom had said on the phone weeks ago, crying for her, for my wife. But I did come home, and there was no one waiting. I didn't even go to our old apartment. I went straight to the storage unit we'd rented before I deployed, the one I paid for automatically every month. I punched in the code and stepped into the dark, stale space that still smelled faintly like her vanilla candles. There were boxes marked wedding, decor, photos, all of it worthless now. But then I saw a thick blue folder on the shelf, labeled in her neat handwriting, Insurance Beneficiary. I sat on the concrete floor and flipped it open. Inside were copies of my life insurance policy, the one issued before deployment, and a change of beneficiary form dated 2 months after I left. My name scratched out, hers in bold black ink. Except at the bottom, I noticed something strange. The signature wasn't mine. It was a shaky, off version of my handwriting forged. She changed my life insurance to name herself as the sole recipient. And she'd filed it through Kyle's company email. He was the notary. I just sat there for a long time, staring at that fake signature. Then I took out my phone. I didn't call her. I didn't call Kyle. I called a number I'd never planned to use, the one written on the back of the insurance form for fraud or unauthorized change reports. When the operator picked up and asked, "Sir, can I have your name and policy number?" I said very calmly, "Yeah, it's Sergeant David Hensley, and I think my wife tried to cash me out before I was even dead." The woman on the line went silent for a long second before saying, "We'll need to open a formal case, Sergeant. Please stay available." "Don't worry," I said. "I'm not going anywhere." What I didn't tell her was that I already knew exactly where I was going next. I was going to find Kyle and my wife together, because the part that really made my blood go cold wasn't the money. It was a line in one of her posts that said, "Sometimes life gives you second chances with the right man by your side, and a fresh start coming soon." A fresh start. I needed to find out what that meant. And when I did, that's when everything really started to unravel. Before everything went to hell, we weren't perfect, but I thought we were solid. Her name's Jenna. We met in Denton, Texas. She was a nursing student. I was a mechanic before I enlisted. She used to come into the garage with her beat-up Civic and talk to me while I changed her oil. She said I had quiet eyes. I never understood what that meant, but I liked hearing it. We got married 3 years later, right before my second deployment. I remember standing in front of the courthouse with her in that blue sundress, her hand shaking when she signed her new last name. I thought it was nerves. Turns out it was something else. When I shipped out, I left her the house key, the car, and access to my pay. She cried at the airport, holding my face like she couldn't breathe without me. I believed her tears. I always did. Kyle was my best friend since high school. We'd been through everything together. Broken bones, bar fights, bad jobs. He was the kind of guy who showed up when your car broke down at 2 a.m. No questions asked. He was also the guy I asked to check in on Jenna while I was overseas. I trusted him more than anyone. "Keep her company," I told him. "Make sure she's okay." He did. Too well. At first, she'd send me long emails. Stories about her nursing shifts, how she missed me, how Kyle stopped by to fix the leaky faucet. Then the messages got shorter. Then they stopped completely. When I asked, she said, "It's just been crazy here. You know how life is." I didn't know that crazy meant she'd moved into Kyle's house. I didn't know she'd drained our savings. $28,000 we'd been saving for a down payment on a home, and transferred it to a joint account she opened with him. I didn't even know she'd been wearing my uniform shirt in those pictures until a buddy from my unit sent them to me with the message, "Bro, is this a joke?" It wasn't. She wore my dog tags, my old shirt, even posed with my army cap backward on her head while Kyle's arm was around her waist. The comments were disgusting. People calling them couple goals. My sister even liked the post before she realized what it was. The worst part? My mom defended her. She said Jenna told her I'd been distant before deployment, that I'd checked out, that Kyle had helped her through her grief. Grief for a man who was still alive. When I finally called my mom from base, she sounded small. "She really thought you weren't coming back, David." She said the army told her your unit took heavy losses. That's when something clicked. No one from my unit had called her. That was standard protocol. If something happened, she'd get official notice. So where did that story come from? And then I realized Kyle worked in IT for a defense contractor. He had access to systems, forms, and contacts most civilians didn't. If anyone could fake a notification, it was him. That's when I started replaying every memory I had of those two together. The little laughs. The way she'd look at him when she thought I wasn't paying attention. The way he always found excuses to stop by when we were having a bad day. Every red flag I ignored came crashing back all at once. By the time I landed back in Texas, I didn't just feel betrayed. I felt stupid. And that kind of humiliation burns deeper than anger. That's why, sitting on that storage room floor with my name forged on that form, I didn't lose my mind. I just started planning. Because for the first time in months, I wasn't confused anymore. I knew exactly who they were and what they'd done. The day after I made that call to the insurance company, I drove to our old house. The lease was still under my name. I figured I'd find an empty shell, maybe a few things left behind. But the moment I pulled into the driveway, I saw Kyle's old black F-150 parked out front. My stomach dropped. I sat there, engine running, for a full minute. My hands were shaking on the wheel. I wasn't ready to see them together. Not yet. Then the door opened. She walked out, laughing, barefoot, wearing one of my t-shirts, the faded green one I wore almost every day before deployment. Kyle followed right behind her, holding a mug that said, "Best husband ever." I swear, I almost broke the steering wheel in half. They didn't see me. They got into the truck, still laughing, and drove off. I followed. They went to a storage complex, the same one where I'd been the night before. They parked 3 units down from mine. I watched as they unlocked the door to their new unit and started hauling boxes inside. That's when it hit me. They hadn't just stolen my money. They'd taken my life, my things, my memories. Everything that used to be mine was now part of their future. I stayed in my truck, watching them through the rearview mirror. At one point, Kyle leaned against the door and kissed her. She laughed again. I had to look away. Later that night, I went back after they left. I checked the number on their unit and looked through the small vent near the top. Inside, I saw piles of furniture, boxes marked wedding, and even a framed photo from our wedding. They'd kept it. Only the glass was cracked, and my face had a slash through it. That's when I knew this wasn't just about love or money. This was personal. A few days later, I got a call from a woman named Angela at the insurance company's fraud department. She sounded serious. She said, "Sergeant Hensley, we've confirmed that a fraudulent change of beneficiary was submitted under your name while you were deployed. The notary listed was a Kyle Matthews. Do you know this person?" "Yeah," I said quietly. "I know him." She continued, "We've also found an attempted claim submission for your policy from an email address linked to Jenna Matthews, filed 3 weeks after your unit's deployment update was posted publicly." I froze. She tried to file the claim already? Yes, but it was flagged as incomplete due to missing documentation. We're coordinating with the Department of Defense and law enforcement. You may need to provide a statement. I thanked her, hung up, and just sat there staring at the wall. She'd already tried to cash in on me. She wasn't waiting for me to come home. She wanted me dead on paper. The next morning, I went through my phone backups. I started pulling every text, every email, every video I had from before I left. I built a timeline, dates, transfers, messages. It all lined up. The last message she sent me was the same day $28,000 disappeared from our account. Then I dug into Kyle. I found out he'd quit his job at the defense contractor right after I deployed. He started doing freelance IT work. When I looked up his new business, it was registered under both of their names.
YAK Consulting.
Their new start, and the cherry on top. They'd just put a deposit on a small house outside of Aubrey. My money, my insurance, my life. I didn't confront them. Not yet. I wanted them to think they'd gotten away with it. But I started showing up in places I knew they'd notice. The gas station by Kyle's old house. The coffee shop where Jenna used to work. I didn't talk to them. I just stood there long enough to make them uncomfortable. And sure enough, a week later, she texted me. Jenna, David, I heard you're back. Can we talk? Me, sure. Name the place. Jenna, just somewhere neutral. Please. I knew that tone. It wasn't guilt. It was fear. She just didn't know yet I was done talking. I had other plans forming. And soon, both of them would realize exactly how far I was willing to go to take everything back. We met at a diner off I-35, the kind of place that smells like burnt coffee and cigarette smoke from the 90s. I got there early and sat in a corner booth facing the door. She walked in 20 minutes late, wearing the same perfume she used to spray on my pillow before I deployed. For a split second, my chest ached. Then I remembered everything, the posts, the money, the fake form. She slid into the booth across from me, eyes darting around. You look good, she said. I didn't answer. I just let the silence hang until she started fidgeting with her straw wrapper. Finally, she blurted out, I didn't know you were alive. I laughed. You didn't want to know. She looked like she wanted to cry, but I'd seen that act before. David, it wasn't like that. I was told you were dead. I finished for her. Yeah, I saw the paperwork. Nice touch using Kyle's email. Her eyes snapped up. She froze. You saw that? Yeah, I said, along with the insurance forms you forged. For a second, her face went pale. Then she did something I didn't expect. She smirked. You can't prove any of that, she said quietly, voice shaking but steady enough to make my stomach twist. And even if you try, Kyle already talked to a lawyer. You abandoned me. We have proof. I leaned forward. Proof of what? She didn't answer right away. Instead, she pulled a manila envelope out of her purse and slid it across the table. Consider this a courtesy, she said. Inside were printed screenshots of texts. Fake ones. Between me and some woman named Tessa. They were explicit. Emotional. They made it look like I'd been cheating for months before deployment. My throat went dry. You made these. Kyle did, she said flatly. He's good with that kind of thing. Why? I asked. Her lip curled. Because we knew you'd come back angry. And now, if you try anything, legally or otherwise, those go to your command, your mom, and every one of your army buddies. I sat there, numb. She'd thought this through. Every angle. Every defense. Why are you even here then? I asked. What do you want? She hesitated. To tell you to leave it alone. Move on. The money's gone. The house is gone. You don't need to make this harder than it already is. I studied her face, the one I used to wake up next to. There wasn't a trace of guilt there, just calculation. So I smiled, slowly. You're right, I said. I won't make it harder. She looked relieved for a moment, thinking she'd won. Then I said, but you should probably tell Kyle to stop answering calls from the insurance company. They've got your little claim on record. Her eyes widened. What? Yeah, I said, standing up. Turns out, when you try to cash in on someone's death, they keep receipts. I walked out before she could say anything else. When I got to my truck, my phone buzzed. An unknown number. I answered, Sergeant Hensley? It was Angela from the insurance company. You were right to report the fraud. But there's something else you should know. She paused. We found another active life insurance policy. Not through us, through a private firm, also under your name. Same forged signature. But this one lists the beneficiary as Kyle Matthews. I froze. Your best friend, she said. Did you authorize that? I felt the air leave my chest.
No.
No, I didn't. So not only had they tried to cash me out once, they doubled down. One policy in her name, one in his. It was insurance fraud squared, and it meant only one thing. They hadn't just planned for me to disappear. They planned for me to never come back at all. And now I finally understood the fake notification, the stories she told my mom, the timing of everything. My own best friend had built me a digital coffin before I even boarded the plane. But they'd made one mistake. They'd forgotten what I do for a living. I don't scare easy. And I know how to finish a mission once I start one. That night I didn't sleep. I sat in my truck outside a Motel 6, staring at the ceiling, running every detail over and over in my head. They didn't just betray me. They planned it line by line, form by form, email by email. Kyle forged the paperwork. Jenna made the emotional cover story. Together, they built a narrative where I was dead, unfaithful, and forgotten. And they almost got away with it. But I had something they didn't: training, patience, and absolutely nothing left to lose. So I started building my plan. Not some movie-style revenge fantasy. Real world, legal, surgical destruction. Step 1 was documentation. I created a folder called Phoenix. Every screenshot, every message, every bank statement, every photo went in there. I printed physical copies, 6 sets. One went in a safe deposit box. One went to my mom's house, without explanation. Another went to a buddy in my old unit with a note. If anything happens to me, open this. Step 2 was exposure. I went to the police first. They listened, nodded, took notes. But they said it was a civil matter, unless there was proof of financial fraud. Insurance fraud was federal. So I went up the chain. Angela at the insurance company connected me with a federal investigator who handled fraud involving military policies. When I told him everything, he said, "You have no idea how common this is. But the forged notary signature, that's your smoking gun." He asked if I could get a direct admission or digital trail linking Kyle to the forgery. I said I could try. That became step 3. Kyle's new company, J&K Consulting, had a website with a contact us form. I sent a message from a fake business account pretending to be a client needing data recovery services. He replied in under an hour, still the same cocky tone I remembered. A few messages later, I mentioned I worked with defense contractors. He immediately dropped that he used to do DoD work and had ways to get things done faster. I baited him a little, mentioned forged documents as a hypothetical. He didn't deny it. He laughed. Literally typed, "OL depends who's asking." I took screenshots. Step 4. Get them comfortable. I needed them to stop feeling threatened, so I went dark. No contact, no social media, nothing. I made it look like I'd disappeared again. Within 2 weeks, Jenna's Facebook was full of posts about healing and moving on. Kyle commented hearts on all of them. Good. Let them think they were safe. While they posted, I was busy. I met with the investigator again. We built the timeline. I handed over the fake texts, the altered insurance forms, and the screenshots of Kyle's messages. He looked impressed. This is airtight. Once we get confirmation from the notary's registry that those signatures don't match, we'll have enough for charges. But that wasn't enough for me. I wanted them seen. Step 5 was personal. Jenna's new job was at a private clinic in Louisville. I waited until closing one evening and followed her to her car. I didn't say anything, just walked past her, locked eyes for half a second. The look on her face told me everything. She thought I was a ghost. 2 days later, Kyle called me from an unknown number. I didn't pick up. He left a voicemail. "Man, let's talk. No reason to drag this out." That phrase, "drag this out," made my blood boil. So I called back. Calm. Flat. "Sure, Kyle. Let's meet. We picked a spot. An old bar we used to hit after work before I enlisted. When I walked in, he was already there. Baseball cap. Same smug grin. Like none of this had happened. Look, he started. Things got messy. But Jenna and I... Stop, I said. You're not talking your way out of this. He leaned back, fake calm. Man, you disappeared. We thought you were gone. She was wrecked. We didn't plan this. I stared at him. Then why 2 insurance policies? His jaw twitched, just for a second. Then he smirked. You don't know what you're talking about. Oh, I do, I said. And so does the Federal Fraud Division. You'll be hearing from them soon. For the first time, he looked scared. I stood up, threw a 20 on the table and said quietly, This isn't over yet, Kyle. Not even close. I walked out. My heart was pounding, but I didn't look back. Because I just set the last piece of my plan in motion. And neither of them had any idea that one more twist was coming. One that would destroy everything they thought they'd secured. I thought I'd already seen the worst of them. Turns out I was still only scratching the surface. After the bar, I went quieter. Less stalking, more surgical. I rented a cheap P.O. box under a fake name. I started sending anonymous tips to the fraud investigator, to the bank, even to a handful of veteran forums I used to lurk on. I wanted pressure, not drama. I wanted them to feel the walls close in without knowing from which direction. What I didn't expect was how sloppy they were when they thought they were safe. Confidence makes people sloppy. Pride makes them sloppy. Jenna and Kyle both had both. One night, Kyle left his laptop in his truck. It was stupid, open windows, keys in the ignition, a 30-second oversight. I watched from across the street while he and Jenna argued in the kitchen like everything was normal. He slammed the door and walked off, hood up, and left the truck running. I don't know what came over me. Maybe it was the uniform shirt in Jenna's closet. Maybe the way my wedding photo had been defaced and left on their storage unit shelf. I crossed the street, slid into the driver's seat and popped the glove box. There was a flash drive taped under the lid, labeled JNK/backup. I took it. My hands didn't shake. Back at my motel, I plugged it into a burner laptop I kept for things like this. The moment the drive opened, my stomach dropped. It wasn't just invoices and client lists. There were folders named for towns, dates, and a single word, confirmed. Inside each folder were PDFs, copies of change of beneficiary forms, bank transfer confirmations, scanned IDs. Each file had a name at the top, a soldier, and next to each name, an account number, an amount, and a date stamped the same day the soldier's unit got hit in a headline or in a routine deployment update. There were dozens. Not just our unit. Not just small towns. Men from Fort Hood, Fort Bliss, units I trained beside, all listed like inventory. Then a folder called Social. Inside photos, selfies, soldiers' shirts draped over new girlfriends, wedding pictures with faces scratched out, screenshots of Facebook posts, video files labeled celebration, claim cleared. I opened one. There was Kyle, beer in hand, and Jenna, wearing my deployment shirt, both of them laughing as a notification popped up, the kind that shows a deposit cleared. They toasted the camera. I could hear them saying, clear as day. Next one's in 3 weeks. My throat closed. This was not a crime of passion. This was a business plan. Then I found a spreadsheet called Charity. Beneath it, a list of shell accounts and small nonprofits thrown up just long enough to route money until it looked clean. The donations column matched the amounts moved from the soldiers' accounts. The receipts were fake. The addresses were vacant lots. Jenna had been running a laundering operation under the guise of a support fund for deployed families. Pathetic, if not for the cruelty. The last file I opened nearly made me drop the laptop. It was a scanned document, a notarized-looking affidavit with my name on it, signed by someone I recognized from my hometown, Pastor Lyle, who'd married Jenna and me. Only his signature was dated a month after I shipped out, and the wording said I had expressed intent to forego financial benefits. It was forged. They'd pulled in local names to create a paper trail that would look community verified. They'd thought to buy legitimacy with our neighbors' faces. I sat there in the dark, listening to the hum of the motel AC, and felt something cold and terrible settle behind my ribs. They had farmed deployed soldiers like cattle, picked names, watched public reports, struck when grief or assumed death left an opening. They'd practiced and refined this into a system. My life insurance was not a one-off. It was a template. This wasn't about missing love or a messed-up marriage. It wasn't even about one payday. It was policy, routine, premeditated. And the people I trusted, my wife, my best friend, had become two of the worst kinds of predators. The kind who use your absence to take everything you built. I pulled the files into the Phoenix folder and encrypted copies to 3 places: the investigator's secure email, the veteran forum, and the safe deposit box I'd already filled with paper proof. I hit send on each and watched the progress bar crawl like a heartbeat. Then my phone vibrated. Unknown number. A text. "You don't know what you've started." I smiled. For the first time in weeks, it wasn't a scared smile. It was a plan's first crack. Because once those files went public, this stopped being only my fight. It became all of theirs. The next morning, I woke up to 20 missed calls. Most were from unknown numbers, 1 from the federal investigator and 2 from my mom. I didn't answer any of them. I just stared at the screen until it stopped buzzing. Then I checked the news. The files I'd sent to that veteran forum had gone live. Someone had posted under the title, "Exposing a death payout ring targeting deployed soldiers." Screenshots, names, even the video of Jenna and Kyle cheering. The story spread fast. Within hours, people were tagging the insurance company, the army, and local news stations. I'd lit the match. By noon, the investigator finally reached me. "Sergeant Hensley," he said, "I need to see you in person. Today." I drove down to the regional office, heart hammering. When I got there, he met me in a small room and closed the blinds. He looked pale, tired, serious. "What you sent us," he said, "is bigger than I thought. We ran the data from that flash drive. Those aren't isolated cases." He slid a folder across the table. Inside were photos, Jenna and Kyle, but also 6 other people I didn't recognize. "Who are they?" I asked. "They were part of it," he said. "We think your wife and Kyle were running a local branch of a larger operation, using insider info from defense contractors to identify soldiers with high-value policies. They'd confirm deaths early, file false claims, and move the money before the actual notification process caught up." My stomach dropped. "And Jenna?" He hesitated. "She wasn't just helping. She was the link. The recruiter." "What do you mean, recruiter?" He pulled another file, screenshots of Jenna's messages with other women. Some were military spouses. Some were girlfriends. She'd been grooming them, teaching them how to file fake paperwork, how to cry at the right times, what to say to family members. They called her the Widow Whisperer. That name made me sick. "She targeted women whose husbands were overseas," he said. "Told them they deserved a fresh start, that the system owed them something. She'd connect them with someone like Kyle to handle the technical side. They'd split the payout, 50-50. I just sat there, staring at the table. I could see her handwriting in the forms, her little hearts over the eyes. That was her signature, her charm. "She used you," the investigator said quietly. "Your deployment gave her the credibility to move through those circles. You were her first trial run, her proof of concept." I don't remember breathing for a while after that. It wasn't just betrayal, it was foundation. My marriage was the test case for a scam built on dead men's names. The investigator went on. They targeted high-risk deployments, ones with bad communication lines. They'd file claims when a soldier went silent for a few weeks, assuming news lag. The forged notifications would back it up. The timing was perfect, always just before official casualty lists updated. "How many?" I asked. He looked me straight in the eye. "At least 24 confirmed cases. Probably more." I sat there, silent, trying to imagine how many wives smiled in photos while waiting for blood money to clear. Then he said something that stuck with me. "You know what's twisted, Sergeant? When she filled out those forms, she didn't just fake your death. She filed the policy with a future date of incident. What does that mean? I asked. She filed it for 2 weeks after you were already home. My blood ran cold. That meant she wasn't planning for me to die overseas. She'd planned for me to die here. She hadn't just tried to profit off a presumed casualty. She'd scheduled one. The investigator closed the folder. We've got enough for federal charges. Fraud, conspiracy, possibly attempted homicide if we find the setup for it. I nodded slowly. For the first time in months, I wasn't angry. I was empty, because now I understood the full scope of what she'd done. She'd looked me in the eyes, kissed me goodbye at that airport, and already decided how to spend my death check. And the thing about realizing someone loved you only as a stepping stone, it doesn't make you want to scream. It makes you go quiet, cold, focused, because people like that only understand loss when they feel it themselves. And I was about to teach her exactly what that felt like. They arrested them both on a Wednesday morning. I watched from across the parking lot of Kyle's little consulting office as unmarked SUVs pulled up and agents swarmed the place. Jenna came out first. Her hair was tied back, sunglasses on, pretending to be calm, but I saw her hands trembling. Kyle followed a minute later, cuffed and shouting something I couldn't hear. It didn't feel good. Not at first. It just felt final. The news broke the next day. Local couple arrested in multi-state military insurance fraud ring. It was everywhere. Pictures of Jenna in handcuffs. Kyle's mugshot. Their faces plastered across veteran pages. National outlets. Even TV. But that wasn't my revenge yet. Not all of it. The investigator called to thank me for cooperating. Said my testimony would help a lot of families get justice. But I told him I wasn't done. I want every dime they stole accounted for, I said. Every soldier they targeted deserves their name cleared. He agreed. And over the next few weeks, I worked quietly behind the scenes with him and a few journalists. We tracked down some of the other families. Widows who'd been told false stories about their husbands' policies. Guys who came home to find their accounts emptied. One woman, her husband had died for real, broke down crying when she realized the charity fund that sent her $500 had pocketed nearly $80,000 meant for her son's college. Every story like that carved a deeper hole in me, but it also fueled me, because this wasn't just personal anymore. It was war. Then came the trial. I sat in the courtroom in uniform just a few rows back. Jenna wouldn't look at me. Kyle tried, but his eyes darted away every time. The prosecutors laid it all out. Forged documents, digital trails, shell charities, and the recorded video of them celebrating. When they played the clip of Jenna laughing in my shirt, the one she'd captioned, "Found my real hero Red Heart," the whole room went silent. Even the judge's jaw clenched. Their lawyers tried everything. Claimed emotional stress. Claimed confusion. Claimed love. But the evidence didn't care about feelings. In the end, they both took plea deals, 20 years federal with restitution. Their assets were seized. The new house, the car, even the furniture, all gone. When it was over, I walked out of that courthouse into the Texas sun and felt something shift. Not relief, not victory, just peace, quiet and heavy. I went to the storage unit one last time, the same one where I'd found the insurance folder months earlier. I opened the door, grabbed the box marked wedding, and dragged it outside. Photos, letters, all of it. I lit a match and watched it burn. The air smelled like melted plastic and old memories. Inside one of the boxes, I found something I hadn't noticed before. The blue sundress she wore when we got married. I almost left it, but then I folded it once, set it on top of the flames, and whispered, "Guess this is your fresh start." When I walked away, I didn't look back. It took months for the noise to die down, the calls, the interviews, the online sympathy messages. I ignored most of them. I moved into a small house near Fort Worth, picked up contract work, kept to myself. Every once in a while, I'd get a letter from another vet thanking me for exposing them. One guy said he got his policy restored and was able to buy his family a home again. That was the only kind of closure I wanted. I still dream sometimes. About that airport, the empty arrivals gate, the silence where she should have been. But now, when I wake up, I remember that no one's waiting on me anymore. And that's the best peace there is. Because sometimes revenge isn't fire or fury. It's paperwork, patience, and watching everything they built crumble by its own design. She once called Kyle her real hero. Now she can tell that to the concrete walls of a federal prison. And me? I came home, finally. Just not to her.